The energy on set changed the second Yandy walked in. Her face was hard to read, tight smile, nervous breath, and eyes that showed she hadn't slept all night. People had been whispering backstage for weeks, but nobody thought she would actually say anything out loud. That changed when she sat down for a break, looked around the room, and quietly told 2 cast members, "I could be pregnant." Those 4 words hit the set like an earthquake. Silence took over, then chaos exploded. Crew members grabbed their phones, messages started flying, and one producer almost dropped their headset. Some thought she was joking, trying to shift the drama, but her face, it told the truth. This wasn't for show. This was real lore, at least it felt real, and the timing. A total shock. Mendeecees was still dealing with the fallout from Tasha K's surveillance drama. Erica Mena was having emotional breakdowns daily, and now, Yandy might be pregnant. Fans were stunned and desperate for answers. Was this the beginning of a new chapter or the start of everything falling apart? The cast was still reeling from the last intense scene. Erica was pacing the hallway. Production staff were whispering, but it was Yandy who dropped the real bomb. She didn't plan to say it. It just slipped out quiet, off camera, just a whisper. A hairstylist and an assistant producer were the first to hear. At first, they laughed, thinking she was kidding until they saw her eyes. No blinking. Number, smile. Just quiet seriousness. She repeated it again, softer this time. "I could be pregnant." The room froze. Then, the assistant producer slowly walked out, trembling, already texting someone. The hairstylist rushed to the makeup room and whispered what she heard. Within 5 minutes, the entire crew knew. 10 minutes later, people were already picking sides. Some felt sorry for Yandy, saying she'd been trying to hold everything together while Mendeecees was caught in scandal and producers pushed for more chaos. Others weren't buying it, they thought it was all too perfectly timed. The real issue: Yandy hadn't told Mendeecees yet. In fact, she wasn't even sure herself. There was no pregnancy test, no doctor's visit, just a late period, overwhelming exhaustion, and a deep feeling in her body that something was changing. But saying it out loud made it real. And now it was too late to take it back. The producers immediately saw a storyline. They huddled together, whispering about how to make it part of the show's arc. They wanted Yandy to say it on camera to catch Mendeecees' real reaction, but Yandy wasn't sure. She wasn't even sure if she believed it herself yet. Still, the show had to go on. When Mendeecees came to film the next day, nobody warned him, no heads up, just the same chair, same set, same producers, but this time, they were waiting for the bomb to drop. He noticed the weird energy right away. When he asked where Yandy was, people gave him vague answers. "She's in Glom, she's getting ready." But Glom had ended an hour ago. When she finally walked in, she didn't go to him. She sat on the other side of the couch, avoiding his eyes. That's when he knew something was wrong. They started filming. First, the usual questions: how they're handling things, whether they're communicating better, the normal fake stuff. Then the producer leaned forward and asked Yandy, "Is there anything you want to tell him? Something personal?" Mendeecees looked confused. Yandy's face went pale. She paused, swallowed hard, and said it again this time. "On camera, I could be pregnant." The silence was thick. Mendeecees blinked. Then he let out a soft, shocked laugh. "Are you serious?" he asked. Yandy nodded slowly. "I haven't confirmed it yet," she whispered, "but something feels different." Nobody moved. The cameras kept rolling. Mendeecees leaned back on the couch, looking like he'd been punched in the stomach. He wasn't angry. He wasn't happy. Just shocked. Then, almost in a whisper, he said, "This isn't the time for something like this." That sentence crushed everything. Yandy flinched. The producer tried to jump in with a follow-up, but the moment was already broken. Yandy stood up, smoothed her pants, and walked out without another word. Her mic caught the sound of her shaky breath before the door clicked shut behind her. Backstage turned into chaos. Crew whispered that the scene had gone completely off track. One showrunner said, "We have to be careful with this." Another producer added, "If this is real, it changes everything." But Yandy wasn't thinking about the show. She sat alone in the hallway, hand over her heart, trying to breathe. She didn't know what hurt more, his reaction, or the fact that she knew this would happen, and said it anyway. Mendeecees stayed in the chair for a long time. Someone gave him water. He didn't drink it. He just stared, lost in thought. "We just got through the last mess," he whispered to himself. "And now this." That night, A crew member accidentally posted a blurry photo of Yandy leaving set with her hand on her stomach. The post was deleted quickly, but it was too late. Fan pages reposted it. Comments exploded. Some said she was faking it for attention. Others defended her, saying she had every right to be overwhelmed. One fan wrote, "If this is real, she's the only one bringing life into all this darkness." Back at home, Mendeecees reportedly didn't speak to Yandy for hours. They sat in silence, in the same room, but emotionally miles apart. Finally, she broke it. "I didn't say it to trap you," she said quietly. "I said it because I'm scared." Mendeecees didn't respond right away. Then he nodded. "You should have told me first, not the whole world." That stung. Because it was true, but she hadn't meant for it to spread. She thought maybe for once it would stay private, but nothing stays private here. Not feelings, not fear, not even a maybe baby. But Yandy wasn't sure she wanted to talk about any of it. Not the negative test, not the emotional spiral that followed, and definitely not the way Mendeecees looked at her as if she had dropped a grenade into the fragile piece they were barely holding onto. She just wanted a moment to think, to feel, to breathe without a producer in her ear, or a trending hashtag tied to her name. But reality TV doesn't wait. By the next morning, the news had already leaked Yandy was not pregnant. Blogs updated their headlines. Fans rushed to comment. Some were supportive, others were cruel. One popular post read, "Told y'all it was just for ratings." Another said, "Same old Yandy, always playing games with people's emotions." The hate was loud. The compassion, silent. She stared at the screen, waiting for a message that never came. Not "How are you feeling?" Not "We'll get through this." Just two letters. Just two letters. Everywhere. Okay. It felt like someone popped the balloon she had been quietly carrying. Everything leaked out, leaving her hollow. On set, the producers were already rewriting the storyline. They wanted a confessional from Yandy, something raw, something emotional. She said, "No. I already gave you my real moment. I'm not performing it again for a close-up." They were frustrated, but they knew better than to press her further. So, they pivoted to Mendeecees. They asked him to open up, reflect on what happened. He refused. "There's nothing to reflect on," he said. It was a false alarm. When they pushed again, saying fans deserved to hear his side, he looked straight at them and replied, "Fans ain't the ones raising my kids. I don't owe them anything right now." And just like that, the wall between the cast and the storyline the producers had banked on came crashing down. Yandy and Mendeecees weren't interested in playing along anymore. They were tired of being dissected, tired of being called dramatic for trying to survive. A few days passed before they finally spoke face to face again. It wasn't a planned conversation. They both happened to be in the studio for wardrobe fittings. The air was heavy when Yandy walked in. Mendeecees was already there, scrolling on his phone. She sat down a few feet away. No one spoke. Finally, Yandy broke the silence. "So this is where we are now." Mendeecees looked up. "Where do you think we are?" She shrugged. "Strangers with shared history." He let out a long breath. "You dropped something huge in front of the whole world, and I wasn't ready," she whispered. "I panicked." He paused, then said, "I wasn't scared of the baby. I was scared of what it would mean for us. For everything we haven't fixed." Yandy looked at him, eyes soft. "Maybe it was the wake-up call we needed?" He nodded. "Maybe." They didn't cry. They didn't hug. But they sat there, two people with too much history and not enough clarity. It wasn't a resolution, but it was a thread, a connection. Production eventually got something from Yandy, but only on her terms. She agreed to film a reflective scene. No lights, no scripted questions. Just her, sitting in a dimly lit room, speaking her truth to the lens. "I thought I might be pregnant," she said. "And it made me realize how much fear I still carry. Not about motherhood, but about being seen, about losing myself." It aired weeks later. No drama, no shouting, just real. And in a season filled with fights and betrayal, it hit different. The cast watched too. Erica posted on her story, "Respect to Yandy for keeping it honest." Rasheeda reposted it with the caption, "Healing is messy but necessary." Mendeecees didn't say anything online, but insiders said he watched the clip more than once. And by the end of that week, something else had taken over the headlines. Another fight, another cheating rumor. The world had moved on, but yet hadn't forgotten what those days felt like. The weight, the fear, the judgment. And strangely, The comfort in knowing that even when things don't make sense, the truth is still hers to carry. She walked into the next filming block with her head high, not because everything was okay, but because she had survived, and in this world, that's enough. Days turned into weeks. The storm around Yandy's pregnancy scare calmed, but the emotional aftershock stayed. The cameras kept rolling. The cast kept acting. But Yandy moved differently now. She showed up, lest she stayed out of drama. She wasn't chasing a storyline anymore. Her words became softer, her presence quieter. People noticed. They just didn't know why. Mendeecees was also laying low. He refused 3 interview requests. He ignored producers' texts, asking for a follow-up sit-down with Yandy. They pitched it as a healing moment for viewers, but he declined. He said he didn't want to relive something he was still trying to process. And most importantly, he didn't trust the editors anymore, not with his pain, not with their story. The couple wasn't broken, but they weren't fully okay either. Their communication shifted. It wasn't cold, but it wasn't close. Mendeecees started sleeping in the guest room. He told himself it was temporary. Yandy didn't ask him to leave, but she also didn't ask him to come back. They were both walking around each other carefully, not from anger, but exhaustion. They'd been here before, on the edge of falling apart. Now they were trying not to fall. Rasheeda was one of the few people who saw what was really going on. She visited Yandy one afternoon under the excuse of a promo shoot. But she stayed long after the cameras were gone. They sat in the kitchen sipping tea as sunlight spilled through the window. Yandy stared into her cup. "I haven't cried," she said quietly. "Not once. I want to, but it's like my body knows I don't have time to break down." Rasheeda nodded. "That's how you know you need to." Yandy laughed a little, but her voice cracked. "He's still sleeping downstairs, and I'm letting him." Rasheeda raised an eyebrow. "Why?" Yandy shrugged. "Because I don't want to force closeness that doesn't feel safe right now." "Safe?" Rasheeda asked. Yandy nodded. "Safe emotionally. I don't want him just existing in the house with me. I want to feel him with me. And I don't feel that right now." The vulnerability in her voice was raw. Not for the show. Just real. Rasheeda didn't say anything. She just reached across the table and squeezed her hand. Online, the internet still hadn't fully moved on. Some fans had let it go, but others were digging. One gossip page posted an old clip from season 8 where Yandy talked about wanting more kids. They edited it alongside her recent scenes to imply she staged the whole thing. "It's giving storyline prep," one user commented. Another said, "She's smart. Y'all just mad she plays the game better than the rest." Mimi clapped back in the comments. "You don't know half of what she carries. Not everything is for views. Some of it is just life." Yandy appreciated that but didn't say anything publicly. Instead, she focused on her family. She took the kids on weekend getaways, no cameras, no drama, just peace. It was during one of those quiet weekends that she finally had a real conversation with Mendeecees again. They were watching their daughter draw when Yandy asked, "Can I ask you something?" He nodded. "Were you disappointed when you found out I wasn't pregnant?" He paused. "No. I wasn't disappointed. I was scared and confused. And I felt like I failed you." "Failed me? How?" she asked. "Because I didn't react with love. I reacted with panic. And I hate that." Yandy's eyes didn't tear up, but she felt something release. "I didn't know how to tell you. I didn't even know how to tell myself." He gently placed his hand over hers. "I should have been more gentle, but I was drowning in my own fear. I didn't see yours." They sat there quietly, their daughter's crayons scratching paper in the background. It wasn't a perfect fix, but it was something. A step. The producers eventually backed off their interview requests. Instead, they pitched a new idea, mini documentary on motherhood. They wanted Yandy to be part of it. She agreed, but only if she had full creative control. No fake editing. No out-of-context lines. Just her truth. In the final cut, Yandy is seen at home reading bedtime stories, brushing her daughter's hair, cooking dinner, and speaking softly to the camera. "People think strength means yelling," she said. "But sometimes, strength is just getting out of bed. Sometimes it's holding your child when you feel like breaking. And sometimes, it's saying, 'I need a minute,' and taking it without apology." Fans were moved. Comments poured in, hearts, flowers, and apologies from people who had judged her too quickly. But even with the love, Yandy stayed guarded. Not bitter, just wiser. She posted less, lived more, and made peace with the fact that not every part of her life was for public consumption. One night, after the kids were asleep, Mendeecees came upstairs with a blanket. He didn't say much. Just laid down beside her on the couch. They watched a movie. Shared popcorn. No talk about the past. No talk about pain. Just presence. The silence wasn't heavy anymore. It was healing. As the movie ended, Yandy whispered, "I think we're going to be okay." Mendeecees nodded. "We always find our way." And for the first time in a long time, she believed it. Not because the world backed off. Not because the cameras stopped rolling. But because even through all the mess, they chose each other. They chose each other.